I've got a confession to make.
I need to get this off my chest. As a business owner, we all make mistakes.
I've got to confess.
And we are live. Mr. Kim Barron, how you doing?
Doing super well. Sir Charlie, how you doing?
I'm really well, dude. You've been a man of the world in the last few weeks. Just quickly for the listeners, just describe where you've been, just the routing of your flights in the last few weeks.
Oh, the routing of my flights was terrible. So Perth to KL to Oman to Paris to Delhi to Sri Lanka to KL to Sydney to Perth.
That is more travel than I do in a year in the last couple of weeks, dude. I'm actually impressed you even made it to do this recording of the episode. So fresh off the plane in to make sure the Confessions listeners get their fix, come in for the good stuff and hear what we're going to confess about today. So do you want to let the guys know what we're talking about on this episode?
Yeah, definitely, because this is kind of fitting off the back of what I've just done. So it's why in-person events are so important. And, just coming off the back of 3 back-to-back in-person events, there's no more fitting conversation for us to have than this one right now.
Well, I'd go even further. A man of your caliber, Kim, you're someone I respect a lot in the business world. And I think you're a very clever guy. For you to prioritize being at 3 in-person events rather than being at your business or be doing something for your business just goes to highlight how important this stuff is, or potentially how we prioritize this stuff for a lot of the success we've had. So we're going to do a bit of a back and forth. We're really going to go back and forth. I love this format where we get to see what each other's are. So we're going to go through our top 3 reasons each of why we feel in-person events are just so important. And we do both feel that. So Kim, why don't you kick it off this time and maybe even share what events you've been at if you want, or lead straight into your numbers.
Yeah, definitely. So I've been at, so it's interesting because 3 different types of events I was just at as well. So I was at one where I was like a keynote speaker in Paris, which was very interesting, being that I was one of, only like 10 people that spoke English there. Then I was at a mastermind where I was a guest speaker and kind of like co-facilitator. And then I was at an event that I was learning from, and, one of our dual mentors going there, learning from a great community. So 3 very different types of events, but
that's got to be the holy trinity, doesn't it? That's got to be the trio.
The holy trinity of events.
The keynote, the co-facilitator or speaker or whatever you would like to call it, or you're presenting it at someone else's event. And then the last one there is where you go to learn. And that is the 3 categories, which makes your points even more important because you've got all these perspectives to consider.
No pressure now. I've got to make sure my points are good.
I feel like this is your thing. You should nail this one.
Hopefully. But so the first point for me is that, generally speaking, as I said, for the types of events I was just at, I have some knowledge of people there. Most of the time, if I go to an event, I've probably either met someone before or we've connected online. And my first point is about building deeper relationships, because when you go to events, especially if they're out of your home city, you've got to have 3 meals a day. Or 2 meals if you do intermittent fasting, right? So you got to at least have a couple of meals where you're going to be out. Maybe you're going to have you're going to go out for drinks. You don't have even if you're not a drinker, you might go out and connect with people. So it deepens relationships. So already existing relationships, it takes them to another level when you get to enjoy good food, good company. But for other people that maybe you've only ever spoken to online, it actually takes it to a whole new level, and the relationship that you build around that is just something that becomes rock solid. Whereas before you're like, well, these people are cool, but when you actually have drinks with them, dinner with them, lunch with them, talk about your fears and frustrations, talk about how you've got to fly out the next day and how tired you're going to be, all that sort of stuff, it really deepens relationships, and you get to see a whole different side of people, and the connection becomes 5 times stronger than it was previously. And obviously, for Charlie and I, that's where we first met was at events, and then we caught up and we had drinks, and too many drinks and too much food. I think after the first event we went to, I was not hungry for like a week afterwards because we had so many meals at one of the events. It was ridiculous in Brizzy at that time.
That is so funny. I was actually literally just thinking of that as this podcast would probably not be a thing if that wasn't true. Like
Yeah.
literally, our relationship deepened and developed at an in-person event where we definitely ate too much food at that night in South Bank on the in Brisbane, which I had a great time, I must admit. But oh my god, that food! Wow, what a night! Making
Yeah.
memories right there, Kim Barrett.
Yeah, I swear it's like Christmas time. You're like, cool, it's Boxing Day, and you're gonna have lunch. You're like, I'm still not hungry from the day before, but got to eat food, right? You got to, it's a part of the tradition. So that would be my number one. Is that it definitely like deepens relationships and makes them go from a Facebook friend, if you will, to an actual friend or an actual colleague or an actual potential business partner, whatever that might be. So that's my number one. What about yours, Mr. Charlie?
Ooh, number one. So this is my number one, and this is more a belief, but I still feel like relates heavily to what we are. And my one is here: your network is your net worth. So why I feel in-person events are so important is it really helps you develop your network in one place really, really quickly. So for example, even at the event we attended, there's a chance you're going to meet a lot of people and build stronger relations with them quickly. So if you're someone that is of that belief, as I am from here, it's something we take very, very seriously, is who we hang out with and why we even have a mastermind group called the Association. Hence, because we believe in that theory there, it just really highlights that by attending more events, either as a keynote speaker or as a co-presenter or as someone that's learning at that event, it just absolutely ties in to the possibility of increasing your network and in turn, your net worth.
Exactly. I think it comes back to the good old famous Jim Rome quote, you're the sum of the five people that you hang around. And generally, if people are stretching themselves, going to an event, taking themselves outside of their comfort zone, they're going to be doing something. Now, like, I'm not saying that every single person you meet at an event is going to help you level up, but the possibility of finding those people is tenfold over thinking you're going to run into them at the local pub or just as by chance at the coffee shop. They've all committed something to be there, whether it's time, money, or something else. And, in my experience, there's going to be such a higher likelihood of finding those great people to make up those five when you're there. And as a byproduct, some, especially when you travel, even domestically, if you're in Australia, it's almost as much as traveling internationally. People have to invest to get there, so they've got to be doing something right in their business to be able to take away the time, pay for flights, accommodation, all that stuff to get to an event.
Ooh, now we start talking about something that's almost a little deeper topic there about the filter. It's like, one of the things that's quite common is like we go to events that are expensive events. Like I think people could categorize some of the things we attend and go to both together and individually is expensive. And one of the things I always come back to is the people that you're going to meet in that room have also had to come up with that same value. So if you were going to go to an event that was a week long and cost 10 grand, people you're hanging out with at that event have also got the 10 grand and value an event of this type. So the chance and likelihood of them being someone you want to spend more time with also goes through the roof. And to come back to your point, I think it was so well done is like, you don't guarantee that you're going to meet someone like this at an event, but if you don't go, you guarantee you won't meet someone like this at an event. So it kind of comes back to that in a way as well. And have you found that to be true? I would actually think that most of your network is probably event related.
Well, pretty much. Actually, yeah, probably like 99% is. But as well, it also comes down to that when I go there, and it's funny, I was speaking to, so when I was going to an event once as well, right? There's a guy who every time I go to Sydney now, Lawrence is his name. He comes and picks me up. He drives a Tesla for Uber. He comes and picks me up from the airport. And so this morning, having a great conversation with him, talking about a book. I think it's called like The Science of Luck, and it was scientifically proven that people that expected they were going to be lucky or expected they were going to get a certain outcome were like, let's just say I would put an arbitrary figure, 80% more likely to achieve that. So when I go to an event, I always expect that I'm going to meet a great connection. I'm probably going to get some business out of it, and it's going to be a great time. And I'm yet to be disappointed at any event that I go to because that's my expectation. I don't go to one, expecting that I'm not going to learn or not going to get something. So I think when you have that expectation, that that's then what your mind starts looking for, and opportunities are far more abundant than if you're not in a room like that.
So good. So good. I agree so much on that.
Yeah, it's so true. And it kind of falls into as well my point number two, if you don't mind me rolling into that,
Roll in.
which is about the broadening of your mind and the ideas that you come up with when you go to events. And I'll give you two examples, especially from based on where, or even three, right? So at the event where I was a keynote speaker, I know that every time I go to that, I am going to be peppered with questions afterwards. Not necessarily because my topic is so good or anything like that, but people always go, okay, this person's talked about this. I'm going to ask him the most complicated question that I haven't been able to come up with a solution for, because that's what they're there. It's like, oh, cool, this happened and I couldn't figure it out. Tell me the answer. And you're like, okay, so you've got to be on point, which means your mind has to be ready for anything. So if you're going in as a keynote speaker, then you're like, well, I could be asked anything in the entirety of the realm of my knowledge, so on Facebook or whatever it might be, and as well, people that know it are going to test you. If they think they're on the same level, they're going to be like, oh, let's see what they've got to say. So your mind has to be in basically expansion mode, because you have to be able to answer, adapt, and work with any question that comes through, which is already mind altering in itself. But if you look at then potentially where you co-facilitate or facilitate an event, you have to be able to mold your mind to the people that are there to be able to give them the best outcome. And a lot of people say, like, when we go to events and, we're looking at maybe it's headlines or ad copy or offers and things like that, and we kind of rattle things off. They're like, oh, you're just so natural. And it's like, well, no, I've done it so many times that now my brain is like processing things as fast as it can to try and give you an answer. Because when you're doing that, you have to stretch what's possible in your brain, and you go, cool, how can I give this person the best answer as well? And then lastly, when you're attending an event, it's like, well, you're all brainstorming together on different ideas and concepts with people at like the same, if not better caliber of your skills. And then you have people facilitating an event for you where you go, oh, now I can stretch my brain and ask them questions. It's like, it completely, blows up, and, it just allows your mind to expand and you actually to get more, because as the same thing as the first principle, some of the 5 people that you hang around, but you also go, well, actually my mind's got to stretch, because I've either got to facilitate someone else get someone else getting that experience, I've got to answer any question that comes through, or I've got to be able to brainstorm with people on the same level as me and ask questions of someone who's at another level to be able to stretch myself. So like it's like the brain Olympics.
A good point. It like almost forces your sphere to open. It's like your sphere of influence, your sphere of understanding a topic, your sphere of perceptions, or what you understand about your own topic. It's just such a win on many levels there. I love that point.
Yeah, and it always does, and there's a reason why afterwards you need to kind of pass out for 2 days after an event. Is really not that it's physically draining, unless you go out all night drinking with people, but neither of us have done that before. Yeah. But just the energy and effort you put in with your brain is firing kind of like all day, and then you're coming up with ideas, and you're like, oh, Charlie, did you catch that part? What did you think about that? Or I saw how this could apply for you, and you obviously try and help other people that you're in an event with too, and go, oh, I saw how that might connect for your business. Did you guys get that as well? Did you guys get to see anything that could help me? Like it's draining, and it's like, that's why I was speaking to a client before. It's like, I know that tonight I'm going to have the best sleep, because I'm going to have no alarm clock and my brain will finally go to rest.
Reset.
Like, yeah, it's like sleep now, and it's like, cool, absorbs, melds, and then it's like, cool, ready for the next lot of events in a month's time.
You kind of hit on another one there, which is like understanding how other people have interpreted information. So it's like you might have just learnt something, but someone took something completely different from that, which kind of ties into opening up your sphere, but the perspective of how someone else perceived or learnt something or what they got out of it, huge.
Yeah, no, 100%. And what about for yourself? What would be the second point for you?
Ooh, I've called my point 2 here, dirty little secrets. And what I'll say is that at a number of the events I have attended, alcohol has been involved. Okay, there's been some nights out, and people will often say things that they may not say if it was over a Facebook Messenger chat or on a phone call. And I don't mean from the point of view of as I've kind of intended in this pun, of like they're telling me very vulnerable information or things like that. But it's been more to the point where someone's been more open and more descriptive and more willing to share stuff that's been very, very helpful to me. And I've had a number of experiences with different people where we've connected over a few beers and a meal and everything and had a lovely night. And we've been able to kind of provide a lot of value to each other. And it's been a really good thing and offered a significant lift in my business.
That's so true. And I think as well, like, because if you're in a room with people in this scenario, it's really normally they would probably charge people for these conversations, right? And because you are in the same room, a session with Charlie might normally be $500 or $1,000 an hour. But if you're in a room at an event with him and you're over dinner and you're having a beer, no one pulls out the stopwatch and then says, I'm going to bill you for this time. It's back and forth conversation. Sometimes it may be more one-sided than another, but it happens, and it's like you're almost not saying it that it is, but it's almost like a free consultation session, really, when you think about it, because everyone's bouncing ideas around. Obviously, it's a much more natural, relaxed flow, but that is an opportunity when you're there. Is that, well, sometimes you may not even be able to get access to these people. They may be way too busy, but they make time for events, and you get to have great conversation and get great outcomes from it too.
I'll give you a really good example here is that at an event I was at, I met a guy called Greg, which you know Greg as well. He's a phenomenal CFO person, very, very in touch with numbers in a business. And one of the challenges I was having was I was paying my staff weekly. And every month that had 5 Mondays in it, my numbers looked terrible because we had to pay the staff 5 times in a month instead of 4. And he was able to kind of provide a solution to that in conversation at the event that made a huge difference in my books and cash flow and everything like that. So the solution was, just for reference here, paying the staff on the 1st and the 15th of every month instead of every week. I paid them every week because they wanted to be paid every week, but in hindsight, it wasn't a good decision for the business for how it made our P&L look and how it flowed. And every so often I'm like, oh my God, what went wrong? What did we do wrong this month? So it's little things like that.
Yeah, and if we can sidetrack for just a short moment there, just for anyone listening, obviously being confessions, does that actually have an impact on cash flow as much as the P&L? Or what was the biggest factor in doing that? Because me, and maybe foolishly doesn't end up being the same, but like, what was the biggest difference from making that change?
Cool. So on the annual report, so if you're looking at a yearly report, it does wash out. It's completely fine. It doesn't affect your numbers on that way. But at the end of the month in my business, what I love to know is my P&L and my cash position. So if you can imagine, we were billing, at this time I was working in an agency and we were billing clients monthly. So we'd send them an invoice for a monthly service, they would pay for the monthly service, and that was the incomings of the business. Okay, so that was relatively the same. But if you were looking at 2 months side by side, in 1 month, if we'd have paid the staff 5 times, there was an extra round of payments on them. So that both the P&L and the cash flow report and amount of money in the bank looked like bad. Like the difference between 4 and 5 is 20%. So you're literally sitting there thinking you've had 20% worse a month until you went in there and kind of had a look. So when you balance these things out, it allows you to be a more effective manager, or I guess a more effective, over your books and where you're going, and a better perspective. So that's how it comes out on the reporting. If that that's awesome. Does that kind of make sense on that front there?
Yeah. That was just a little cheeky question for myself.
Yeah, that's what these are for. We've got to confess. And, in that space is like one of the things, and it seems very topical. I'm getting a lot of numbers questions at the moment around me, but like one of the things I really encourage every business to do, or business owner, I should say, is you've got to spend some time understanding your numbers. And I think at minimum, being able to read your reports at the end of the month and really understand how that's all being driven is just so crucial to success.
Yeah, no, that's so good. And yeah, because the question I asked is like, because I look at mine as well, and I've never thought about that before. Because to say some months you're like, oh, well, obviously that was just bad. But now in hindsight, I should probably assess and going, because I look at it graphically as well and go, oh, cool, we got a dip in this month always. And it's like, well, is that the month that has 5 weeks? So should I be reassessing my assumptions? So that's, very interesting. No, that was cool. Thanks for that, man.
Yeah, more than welcome. I mean, these podcasts can go anywhere, and this is one of the great things is we've got to confess all the sins and the mistake. I only learnt that because I made the mistake, and that's why confessions is such an important thing. Is really we're just recapping all the lessons we've learnt and how we've overcome them.
Yeah, no, that's so good. And it also does such a nice little cheeky segue into my last point too, being that being that obviously, you had that decision at an event, and obviously Greg gave you that answer, and now obviously we've both somewhat positioned him as an expert based off that, right? So the last point is that from a position of generating business from an event is that if people meet you at an event, even though there could be 50 other possibilities and people that they look to for that service, they then go, well, you're the expert that I know. So it makes it so much more likely that if they got to use that product or service, you're going to be the person of choice. You're going to be the person that they move towards because they've met you. Maybe they've had a drink, dinner. They've got to know you and your personality. Well, why would I work with someone that I don't know versus someone that every now and again I see at an event, we have dinner together. I know that they're a genuine person. They seem nice. I get to spend time with them versus someone that they don't have. So you actually see as a byproduct, depending on the type of events you go to, is that you generally see an increase in business, even if you're not a selling from stage person, even if you're not presenting there. By being there, you're like, better the devil you know kind of a situation where they go, well, I know you, I've experienced you. So if I'm going to do something with someone, I may as well use someone that I've met versus a complete random stranger.
Absolutely. I love that point so much. It's like, I don't want to say you become the default, but it's like you become the safe option. There's a level of safety that comes into working with you if you're able to facilitate that. So agree so much on that. Is there things that you've, let's say, worked with people specifically because of?
Yeah, definitely. Like I get, as I said, so many events that I am at, I get that outcome, and it's because I'm there and I'm consistently there as well. That's why I do make the effort, because I know that as a byproduct of going to the events, something comes of it. So whether it's, we do bots, and it's like I'm at an event and someone mentions the word bot, and it's funny because I don't throw my hand up straight away. Everyone else goes, Kim, speak to Kim. He does bots. Same as like outsourcing. Like I was at an event, Charley wasn't even there, and people mentioned virtual assistants, and myself and Calvin are there, and everyone's like, well, obviously you'd speak to Charley. Like, who else would there be? Because we've both met him at events, and we both know that he's our preferred person in our mind, so you wouldn't think of anyone else. So for me, and it's the way I make recommendations, if people need other stuff, like we know people that sell houses, they're buyers agents, they're this, they're that. It's like, oh, well, you'd probably speak to that person, even though I may not have done business with them. Like I send out so many referrals and business that way, because it's like, well, they're like, are they good? I'm like, yeah, I had a beer with them. They're awesome. Like, yeah, of course you'd go speak to them. So it's it's crazy the way it happens. But like I said, the most recently, like when I came back, obviously at one event I did make an offer, the rest I didn't, but I still came away with business from every single event, purely because now I'm like, oh, I'm the person that they know and are aware of, and the conversations always happen after. They go, I remember you mentioned this. That's cool. I want to do that. Or I remember you said something about this and you guys do that. Like, tell me more. Let's do a call. And I'm sure you probably have the same experience.
Well, I've actually just achieved something on my bucket list almost, is like I've managed to outsource being at an event. My name got recommended at an event that I was supposed to be at as well, which makes it worse, but still getting the cred points on that one.
No, it's so it always happens. But as I said, but that's because you've probably been to every or most of the events of that type for such a period of time. It's like, well, of course you're gonna
Absolutely.
Be mentioned for that too. And what about yourself, Shad? The last point, bring us home. No pressure, but the final.
There's a lot of pressure, but I feel like you've given me a perfect segue, so this will work as well. We've managed to tie these in without too much communication, which is just great. It's just the eye movements, so you know what's coming next. Okay, so this ties in a little bit as well to what you just said, but it's like being able to make a better assessment if I want to work more with a person down the road. So this is, yours was more of a group aspirational, where this is me making decisions about specifically working with people. Now, something I've found is like, inevitably when I've met someone on the internet, which is so common these days, especially in what we do, when I go to meet them in person, number one, they never actually look like what I expect them to look like. They might be like, for instance, Kim Barrett is a giant. He's very tall. You may not expect that when you see him. The other side of things is that they're never actually like I expect them to be from their text. So I don't really feel like we know people if we just know them online. And that's not to say I don't do deals with people just online or that I haven't spoken on the phone or things like that. But you get such a different understanding of someone if you have met them in person and feel of what they're really like. So if I was going to go into, let's say I was going to go into a big business deal and I was going to buy a business or go into a business partnership with someone, it would be very unlikely that I would do that with someone that I hadn't met in person. Meeting them in person is a great qualifier to help me understand if it's suitable. So in the example here, if Kim, if you called me up now and said, right, let's go Harvey's in buying a business, I'm completely open to that because we know each other on such a personal level. It's like, I can see, in your soul, you're such a good dude, right at the core level, like I feel it. And that enables me to go, right, well, this is a good place to know that I would want to do other things. But if we hadn't, it's like to get over that barrier and the trust and everything that comes with it, I just don't think it's possible.
Yeah, I think that's such a good point because, yeah, you can see, and it's not always that necessarily it's a bad type of person, but you go actually and meeting them, cool. Also, like personality types may clash and things like that. Not to say that they're bad at what they do, but for you as an individual, it may just not be the right choice. And as you say, it is hard to say if it's just back and forth on text, especially if it's going to be something that you're involved with, and you go, actually, these are crazy people. Like they're like out there, extreme opposites to me. I feel like it may be hard for us to manage that relationship. So it's not something that I would do, which you can't always tell over text. Like I have a certain type of client. It's lucky for us. We have clients that are like extreme. They want to shoot you 10 voicemail messages about all this stuff, and they're so excited and amped. And like one of my new team members came on and trying to he's like, man, it's freaking me out. It's like, man, you've got to be like, they're like fire. You got to be like the water. You just got to put it out, and you're like, cool. Distill their 10 messages, and you go, oh, so you want me to do that one thing? Absolutely, not a problem. All good, taken care of. And it calms down their responsiveness, and you go, oh, cool. I can work with them. Would I want to work with 100 clients like that? Probably not. But I'm happy to go with a couple. So when I'm looking for people to do business with, you go, well, these are going to be intensities. And you go, maybe I can have 3 relationships like that, but not 50, So it's always a very interesting one to not only obviously weigh up skills and things like that, and ability to work together, and integrity and genuineness, if that's even a word, but also then obviously like different personality types and how you personally manage personality types too.
Absolutely. And yes, we'll definitely add that as a word. Anything goes on the Confessions podcast. We can make up words. I've called it. But I'll give you the reverse of this. This is something that came into my sphere. And this was a very hard lesson to learn. I'm even going to just like full open up on this one. I have a person that I deal with a lot with outsourcing angels, which is Lynn Padetti. Like we've been doing this a while. And one of the things she brought up into my world, and you've got to have people like this, you've got to have people that can tell you the truth, is she goes, over text, you're an asshole. She goes, you're actually an asshole via text. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I didn't think that I was. After speaking with her, she's like, you can be very blunt. You don't really use emojis. Like you can be, say hello sometimes. You just go straight into the thing. And I was like, well, I'm not trying to be blunt. I'm just communicating. And she's like, yeah, but you have to understand how you're being perceived. And this is why voice messages, anyone that is on Messenger with me on Facebook knows that I gravitate towards these now. And it's because of this influence from Lynn. And it actually made a huge difference to our relationship. And she goes, you need to be very aware that you're not friendly via text. And she's also told me that when I'm out and about, she goes like, your resting face is a bitch face. So you have to look at it where most people could be perceiving you as resting bitch faced and extremely blunt by text. A lot of people could quite easily perceive you as an asshole. And I was like, oh, fuck. It's not what you want to hear. I actually thought I was a friendly person. She goes, but you think that, and you are, but you're not necessarily being perceived in that way. So anyone that I've met in person, it's like, I actually feel like I've got strong relationships and they probably understand me on some level. But if I'm coming across that way, I'm almost thinking of the reverse of going, it's not just me making assessments of who I want to do work with. It's giving people the opportunity to make an assessment of me if they want to do more work with me. So it's coming back to that other side and just ties into this topic so well.
Yeah, 100%. And I have so many people, and probably myself included, done things in certain ways, and you go, yeah, like the whole message thing is like so many times we have guys in the office and they get freaked out because they get a message from a client or something. I'm like, did you speak to them? Like, no, I got a message or an email. I'm like, cool, just give them a call. I was like, I know it's not going to be a problem, but when it happens, that's just the way that it is. And there's, as you say, it is funny. It's like, and I think especially if you're an introverted person and you go to events, you have to completely flip the switch on how you will. Otherwise, everyone's like, oh, they're arrogant or they're an asshole or whatever. And it's like, well, no, actually, I just get tired out by people. So you got to make sure you don't take your phone with you or something. So you go, I have to, force yourself to connect a bit more, because otherwise they go, oh, this, that Kim guy was at an event, but he thinks he's so good. He's just on his phone the whole time, didn't talk to anyone, just stand in the corner. And it's like, well, yeah, as you say,
actually, I'm scared of you.
Works. Yeah, exactly. So you all freak me out. Don't talk to me.
Absolutely, dude. It's so true. But in person kind of covers that. And I think there's, I don't know the actual stats, but I think text, obviously the worst way to communicate. Again, I tend to communicate like a caveman. Kim, podcast now. Voice, we take it up to that next level. Video, even what we're doing now is hugely, hugely beneficial. But in person, when you can feel someone, like when you can literally, it just kicks it up to that next gear from there. So important.
Yeah, 100%. Couldn't agree more.
Well, man, this has actually been very interesting. The points they all connect and tie in, obviously. But it's been very interesting to think about this, to the point where I'm like, right, I really need to have a look at my calendar here. I probably need to think about what events I want to go to that are coming up, and even put into the consideration of when are we going to run this association event for our mastermind group? How are we going to start connecting people in this way in person so that we can have these in-person experiences? You getting a bit of that? You getting a bit of feel?
100% as well. So then if you're listening to this and you're like, I don't go to many events, maybe you should join the association so you can come to our first event and you can meet us in person if you've been listening to our voices and you're like, these guys just sound like absolute amazing guys, I want to hang around. Then maybe that's something to consider.
Those assholes, they're just standing in the corner, not talking to anyone.
Yeah. Exactly. They're sitting there. What are they even doing?
Oh, too funny. Well, dude, this has been a fun one to go through from there. I think we've got to wrap this one up. This has been a lot of fun. But any thoughts or any final comments you want to make on in-person events for the listeners of this show?
Well, obviously I said it tongue-in-cheek there, but it is definitely like nothing to it but to do it. If you haven't been to a in-person event before and you're thinking of going one, you've got to get to them to experience it. You'll notice a difference. Like I would guarantee you'll notice a difference in any of those 6 areas that we kind of covered. Something will change by attending. It has just by being there. Like something will change. So it's definitely something you need to, if you haven't, and as you said, if you are doing them, look at them. Make sure you get to the right ones, and maybe start going to more.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. And I'm going to even make sure I make more of an effort after this reiteration from here. So that's it. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Confessions of a Business Owner. Till next time, big thank you from me, and I'm going to even do it on Kim's behalf. Big thank you from Kim as well. That's it for this episode, guys.
Bye.